hut. Oh, there's the speed. Sit, hut. Nice.
Yeah, so we partnered with all other CLC middle schools and kind of wanted to run like a sports camp, a place that the kids could get bused from their home school to the like home site, which is Goodrich, and then just take a fun in sports that they may not be able to play, either by grade if they can't do intramurals or just haven't had the opportunity, and just kind of having a fun time in a safe environment.
Tuesday we did football, flag football. That was fun. We did like drills like quarterback, lineman, and like safety drills.
I did soccer, basketball, and today fencing and lacrosse.
There's a lot of students that want to do something and either parents are working or they just don't have that opportunity, and so it's really great just to get them out, get them active, and provide that kind of place for them to be, and offering free lunch for the kids is a big thing, and just parents really enjoy it because they know that where their child is, they get to see like what their child is doing.
Wednesday is basketball, which is my favorite. I love that. The coaches, they're pretty cool, and then I learned some stuff that I didn't know how to do before. I feel like it'll help me because it'll keep me active, and so I have something to do. I don't really play video games that much, so usually I'm outside playing basketball.
I've seen a lot of excitement. I've seen a lot of, they come in super nervous, or I don't like basketball, I don't like soccer. And then by the end of it, like I've seen kids make that same child that's like, I don't like soccer, make that kid goal. And they love it. And by the end, they're like, I maybe like soccer, or I want to join a team. I've seen new friends get made. I had 2 students who now have a play date. Like they set up, they got parent contact and everything. So now it's like that friendship could be lifelong.
I'll say go because it's something to learn other sports. And I just tell them, go to the camp because you can try out some sports that maybe you like.
Like, it's okay to meet new people, and if I haven't seen you before, yeah, we'll definitely hang out and we could be friends for sure.
We're that like little bridge that just kind of connects it, and we just are helping families thrive in the community that they live in.
This meeting of the Lincoln Public Schools Board of Education for March 25th is called to order. Laura, would you call the roll?
Ms. Byer.
Here.
Mr. Boswell.
Mr. Boswell excused.
Mrs. Danick.
Here.
Mr. Mayhew.
Present.
Ms. Mumgard.
Here.
Dr. Rauner.
Here.
Mr. Shrivastov.
Present.
Nebraska Open Meetings Act is posted and available at the main entrance of the room for any who would like to read it. Our next is approval of minutes. So we have minutes from February 25th board meeting for approval. Are there any additions or corrections? Seeing none, the minutes stand approved as published. Our next is item special report 6.1, Ashton Krueger, 2024 Nebraska International Languages Association Language Teacher of the Year. Annie.
All right, would Ashton please join me at the podium? All right, well, I'm going to read this as a motion. Whereas Ashton Krueger, Lincoln East High School French teacher, has been named the 2024 New World Language Teacher of the Year. Wait, you're the German teacher or the French teacher? German. We might need to change. We might need to fix her proclamation here. Let me rephrase that.
I was supposed to do hers. You. I think you switched the order from the menu, from the agenda.
Ah.
I'm going to start over. Welcome, Ms. Krueger. It's my pleasure to meet Ashton Krueger, Lincoln East High School German teacher. Whereas, so here's the motion. Whereas Ashton Krueger, Lincoln East High School German teacher, has been named the 2024 New World Language Teacher of the Year, and whereas Ashton Krueger displays a passion for teaching German and is a champion for world languages, and whereas Ashton Krueger creates engaging lessons that encourage students to explore German and other world languages, And whereas Ashton Krueger is valued, respected, and admired among her colleagues, not only at her school, but also across the school district and the state of Nebraska, now therefore be it resolved that the Lincoln Board of Education does hereby congratulate Ashton Krueger for being named the 2024 New World Language Teacher of the Year by the Nebraska International Languages Association, NILA, signed by President Bob Browner and Superintendent John Scretta. Congratulations.
Alrighty. Thank you so much for this recognition. Teaching a language is about more than words. It's about opening doors to new cultures, perspectives, and opportunities for students. I'm honored to be here, and I want to give a special shout out to my mentor, Julia Evans, and my incredible colleagues, such as the other ones, being congratulated here tonight. I also hope to see even more world language teachers choose this profession in the future, helping students become global citizens as I strive to teach them. Thank you so much.
Kathy?
I would second that motion for Ashton Krueger, German Teacher of the Year.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Laura, would you call the roll?
Ms. Mumgard,
Yes.
Mr. Shrivastov,
Yes.
Ms. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Boswell, sorry, Mrs. Danick,
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew,
Yes.
Dr. Browner.
Yes. Next, we have item 6.2, Kelleen Rosebaugh, 2024 Nebraska International Language Association German Teacher of the Year. Piyush.
May I ask Ms. Rosenbach to please come forward?
I don't know, it says, I'm just reading. The third one's French, right?
I'd like to present this in form of a motion too. Whereas Kelleen Rosenbach, German teacher at Southeast High School and SCO Middle School, has been named the 2024 Nebraska German Teacher of the Year. And whereas Kelleen Rosenbach displays a passion for teaching German and is a champion of world languages. And whereas Kelleen Rosenbach creates engaging lessons that encourage students to explore German and other world languages. And whereas Kelleen Rosenbach is valued, respected, and admired amongst her colleagues, not only at her school, but also across the school district and the state of Nebraska. Now therefore be it resolved that the Lincoln Board of Education does hereby congratulate Kelleen Rosenbach for being named the 2024 German Teacher of the Year by the Nebraska Association of Teachers of German and Nebraska International Languages Association. Signed by Dr. Bob Browner, President of Lincoln Public Schools Board of Education, and Dr. John Scretta, the Interim Superintendent of Schools.
Thank you for this recognition. I'd like to thank all of the wonderful staff at Southeast, particularly those who came out today. Thank you. As well as my wonderful mentors that I've had here at Lincoln Public Schools, Marissa Wanamaker and Julia Evans, who are my practicum and cooperating teachers, and Terri, who was my first year mentor teacher while I was here at Lincoln Public Schools. So thank you.
Don? Don?
I second that.
Any discussion? Laura, would you please call the roll?
I'd say sounds great in German, but I don't know how to speak. There we go.
Laura, would you call the roll?
Mr. Shrivastov,
Yes.
Ms. Mumgard,
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew,
Yes.
Mrs. Danick,
Yes.
Ms. Byer,
Yes.
Dr. Browner.
Yes. Next, we have item 6.3, Terri Dimon, 2024 French Teacher of the Year by Nebraska Association of French Teachers. Barb.
Terri, come and join me at the podium. Nice to meet you. Enchanté. Very good. This is also in the form of a motion. Whereas Terri Dimon, Lincoln Standing Bear High School French teacher, has been named the 2024 Nebraska French Teacher of the Year, whereas Terri Dimon displays a passion for teaching French and is a champion for world languages, and whereas Terri Dimon creates engaging lessons that encourage students to explore French and other world languages. And whereas Terri Dimon is a valued, respected, and admired among her colleagues, not only at her school, but across the school district in the state of Nebraska. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Lincoln Board of Education does hereby congratulate Terri Dimon for being named the 2024 Nebraska French Teacher of the Year by the Nebraska International Language Association and the Nebraska Association of Teachers of French. And this is signed by Dr. Bob Bronner, President of the Board of Education, and Dr. John Scretta, our interim superintendent.
Bonjour à tous. I am deeply honored to stand before you today as a recipient of this award. Teaching French has never been just about teaching vocabulary or grammar or verb conjugating, although I really love teaching verb conjugation. It has been about creating relationships with those students and opening up their minds and their world vision. Nelson Mandela once said, "If you talk to a man in a language that he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart." Language is more than just communication, it's connection. It's a bridge that can turn strangers into friends, transforms cultures into shared experiences, and makes the world a little smaller and more beautiful. To my students, if you're all watching, you are and always have been the reason that I do this. I have had the privilege to watch students over 30 years of teaching French embrace the challenge of learning the language and Francophone cultures. You are learning to see the world through new eyes, and I wish my students the opportunity to travel to places that excite you. To my fellow language educators, this award is a reflection of all of us. Teaching a second language is not easy, but as Charlemagne once said, to have another language is to possess a second soul. We are not just teaching words, we are shaping identities and broadening horizons. And thank you to all of my mentors, colleagues, and the entire community of LPS for supporting language education. This award belongs to all of us who believe in the magic of words and the power of understanding. And of course, I'd like to thank my husband, Bill Dimon, and my two children, Walker and Franny, for supporting me all these years. Thank you very much.
Kathy?
I would second that.
Kathy?
Now I can say something to all three of you, because foreign language for my family was really important. My grandparents were first generation from the Middle East, and my grandmother would get frustrated and she would start speaking in Lebanese, and I would go, "English, Grandma," and she would rattle something off, and I'd say, "I don't think I want to know what that means." So I was in trouble. But as I got to high school, 54 years ago, I had this great German teacher, Miss Dolezal at Northeast High. And she came here right after World War II. And she gave us a different look, not just at learning a language, but at what it meant to bring that language here and share it with students who got to enjoy the culture because she knew it, who got to see the places through her eyes. So if you give that to your students, which I can take from these nomination letters, that's what you did. Sharing those cultures, sharing those dreams with kids, opening a world to them, I thank you for that. That curiosity lives forever in our students.
Don? And Annie?
Terri, it says here that you came out of retirement to get the program started at Standing Bear. Is that correct? Yes. What a gift for our students and for our district. Thank you so much, and congratulations on this recognition.
Annie?
I'm just thinking that meeting in Nebraska had to be so exciting for all our LPS teachers. and winning the awards. Also just want to say, it was my French teacher who saw me in high school as a rather unhappy high schooler and said, you know, you're pretty good in your French. Have you ever thought of traveling there? And I'm like, you know, I was a girl from Belmont. I was not going to travel there. And what do you know, within less than a year, I traveled to France. And so it was kind of like the beginning. And I'd never been on a plane, and I got on a plane to France. We landed somewhere, and I didn't know you were supposed to get off. And thank God the woman next to me knew I was alone and said, why don't you come with me? So it was the beginning of trying out things you never knew you were going to do. And so I just thank all of the teachers well, I think all of our teachers, but if you're teaching a foreign language, especially, as you said, it opens up worlds that we did not know we had or we could go to, and maybe we can rethink of who we are in this world. So thank you very much.
Great. All right, Laura, would you call the roll?
Ms. Byer,
Yes.
Mrs. Danik,
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew,
Yes.
Ms. Mumgard,
Yes.
Mr. Shrivastov,
Yes.
Dr. Rauner.
Yes. Next, we have public comment. Blue cards available at the entrance for those wishing to speak. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes, and they provide printed materials to the board. Please begin your remarks by introducing yourself, your address, the name of any organization you are representing, and we will inform you when 1 minute remains. I have a card from Miss Jane Dowd.
Good evening, school board members. My name is Jane Dowd. My address is 3727 South 78th Street. I'm the secretary of the Lincoln Homeschool Orchestras, LHSO. I would like to speak to you tonight about the eligibility rules for the after-school orchestras. Those are the Youth Ensemble for Strings, YES, the Junior Youth Orchestra, JYO, and the Lincoln Youth Symphony, LYS. We were first made aware of the change in the eligibility rules in December of 2024 with the posting of the tryout music for YES. The question of eligibility for non-public school students desiring to participate in competitive activities in the Nebraska School Activities Association, that's the NSAA, sponsored events, I believe, was the discussion which was resolved with the change the governor passed into statute in July of 2023, which required the non-public school student who wanted to participate in competitive school activities, the NSAA, would be enrolled in a public school for 5 hours. It can be seen as reasonable to have students consistently play for the same team for a season of competitions and therefore be a student registered in one school. However, this is not the same situation as the music groups that rehearse after school, which are not sponsored by the NSAA. These orchestral music groups are neither competitive nor representative of a single school. The requirement for the young musician to play in their school music group, which is an orchestra or band, is reasonable. The LHSO has been for over 2 decades the school orchestra for many private, homeschool, and even public school student musicians. Requiring the non-public school musicians to play in 2 school orchestras or music groups, which result in actions that interrupt their school day by attending a second school, is an unreasonable burden and hardship. The LHSO has been a part of the music education in the community of Lincoln for over 2 decades and have qualified many young musicians to play in the after-school music groups. The requirement for the student to be enrolled in a public school music class in order to participate in the after-school music groups harms all of our music students' equal access to music education opportunities. This action can only diminish and discourage music education to the young musicians in the community of Lincoln. Thank you. I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Sorry, we usually don't do back and forth during the meeting, but we certainly can reach out to your elected representative and do some back and forth if
Yes.
you'd like, or the administration. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's the only blue card we have. Next, we have consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve? Are there any items to be removed? Kathy?
Nope, not removing anything.
Okay. Barb?
Excuse me. I thought I was going to second.
Okay, you can.
Just a second here.
Okay.
Ready for the motion?
Yes, I'm going to go and make the motion.
Everybody's got a rough start after spring breaks.
That's it. That's my excuse. Okay. I move approval of 6.1. Whoops, need to go further. 8.1.
Okay.
8.2.
Al, I'm paging through this. Patience. 8.2. And 8.3 and 8.4.
Kathy,
I would second that motion.
is there any discussion, or anything to remove from the consent agenda?
I have a conflict statement.
Conflict statement?
Yep.
Yish?
I hereby declare a potential conflict of interest and hereby abstain from voting on the agenda item 8.2A as to all other matters identified and reflected by my separate potential conflict of interest statement filed herewith. My vote in favor of consent is a vote in favor of all other items, except those identified in that statement upon which I have and do hereby abstain.
All right. Laura, would you call the roll?
Mrs. Danik,
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew,
Yes.
Ms. Mumgarde,
Yes.
Mr. Shrivastov,
Yes.
Ms. Byer,
Yes.
Dr. Rauner.
Yes. Next, first reading from board committees, item 9.1.1, Southwest High School tennis court renovation project.
Yes. Scott could not join us tonight, so we'll go and turn this over to Liz to explain.
Yes, you have several matters before you this evening on first reading. I would like to start off that these projects are sensitive summer work that we would like to get moving on. So with the nature of the one board meeting in March, if the board feels comfortable after discussion tonight, we would request that we waive second reading and move forward. What you have before you are projects that are comparable to what we've done across the district and the planning committee has reviewed. So 9.1.1 is the Southwest High School tennis court renovation or resurfacing project. You've seen pictures where we've done this across at other high schools as those courts age. Similarly, North Star has a high school track renovation project. And then we have been working on our very small acreage elementary schools where we have a lot of trouble sustaining grass to have play areas that are turf. And we have just a few of those left. It's been very effective, worked very well. It's a great resource for the local community in a place where we don't have a lot of green space. So Huntington, Prescott, and Saratoga would be up for those projects. And then we have some skylight replacement. The skylight replacement is planned for Friedstrom, Krueger, and Southwest. And that is from the insurance fund. That was related to some damage that we've been working on getting figured out. So those are all of the facility infrastructure projects that we'd like to get going on this summer.
Okay. Barb?
I move approval and waive second reading for 9.1.1, 9.1.2, 9.1.3, and 9.1.4.
Okay. Is there a second? Don?
I second.
Is there any discussion? Annie and then Barb?
Sure. I just want to say I was at Hartley recently, and it was slightly raining the day I was there, and they have had their turf replaced. And we went actually to the playground to look, and it was really refreshing. I think the preschool kids were out there, and he said it's amazing because now it's no longer a mud pit when it rains out there. It's actually a place for them to play. So, I mean, that project we've been doing there, and I've watched the same thing happen at Clinton on Holdridge, that they're out there playing in a part of the yard. They had this huge yard. They never were using the full part of it. Now they are, and that's really pretty amazing. So the Huntington, Prescott, and Saratoga turf playgrounds is especially a great project. The other ones we all need because we got to get them done, but I support it all. But
okay. Barb and then Annie? Or no? Yeah. No.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. Lost track of who is doing what.
I just wanted to go and say something similar as Annie did here. In my area, town, Everett and Park and McPhee have received these artificial turfs. They're very, very small areas, and particularly over at McPhee, they had a little area of grass that was kind of off limits for the kids most days because they didn't want to rip up the turf. And now when I drive past or walk past, I see the kids out there playing. They have more space, and so it's been a really good choice.
All right. Kathy?
I don't really have a question, but maybe a little. Southwest and North Star, are they like in the cycle
Yes, yep, and it would also be the evaluation of the condition that would also, yep.
Because they're finally 20 years old, and it's hard to believe that they're 20 years old, but I
Yep.
still remember when they opened, so they're no longer our babies anymore. We're cycling through those two high schools. So the tennis courts and then the track.
Mhm.
Are there any others that are coming up on those, or are these the end for where they are in the cycle right now?
This would be the end for what we have planned this summer. We reevaluate every year.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Laura, would you call the roll?
Mr. Mayhew,
Yes.
Ms. Mumgarde,
Yes.
Mr. Shrivastov,
Yes.
Ms. Byer,
Yes.
Mrs. Danik,
Yes.
Dr. Rauner.
Yes. Next, we have item 9.1.5, wheelchair school buses. Barb.
Yes. Liz, I'll ask you to speak again.
You bet. 9.1.5 and 9.1.6 are the two matters of kind of our annual process for evaluating our school bus fleet and then enhancing that fleet. Both of these, we would also request we waive in one reading. There are components that do come from other countries, and we just want to get moving on it. And so that would be our request to the board. Phil is here this evening. If you have any questions about the school bus purchase, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer those. This was reviewed and discussed at the planning committee.
Yes, I move approval and waive second reading. We need to do that on these. Okay, 9.1.5 and 9.1.6.
Don?
I second.
Any discussion? Barb?
I just recall us discussing electric buses, and I was wondering if Phil could come up and tell us a little bit of an update on those electric buses.
So for the record, I got to ride on one today. So I was down at transportation, so Phil had the team take us for a little spin.
Yep, so that tells you a little bit of the details right there. We did receive 2 of our electric buses yesterday. The third one remains up in Omaha at the dealership for some training that they'll be providing on maintenance and repair of those types of buses. So we'll have some of our maintenance staff going up there next week to participate in that training, and then we'll get our third one. So just waiting for kind of the charging installations to be installed so they can be used kind of in a pilot program over the summer for some summer school work or summer school routes to see how they function before we put them out into the world next school year. So.
Any other discussion? Questions? Annie?
So these are 5 more buses, the 84 ones. They're not electric, right?
Correct. So, for example, the 84 passenger buses we're talking about here are the very largest rear-engine pusher-style buses that we use for regular education routes and for activity trips. The technology has not evolved to the point where an electric motor can power a vehicle of that size, effectively in that distance. So they're still powered by diesel.
And so we're replacing the fleet with electric as possible, correct?
Yeah, these first 3 we purchased were, they're intended to be kind of a pilot program to see how they function in the way we conduct our business every day, to see how they hold up and if their range is adequate and all of those details. So these will be our first foray into electric vehicles to see how they do.
Sounds great. Thank you.
You bet.
I just wanted to ask a few questions about the operation of the electric buses. And I also was wondering, did we get these electric buses through some grants?
Yeah, there's a federal rebate program that we participated in that we took advantage of so that we could get these at a reduced cost with some rebates from the federal government.
Okay. And so electric buses, have the studies shown that they have fewer breakdowns and repairs?
That's yet to be seen. I think it's still early enough in the cycle of these being on the scene to know that for sure.
Okay.
That's kind of why we wanted to take an approach where we wanted to do sort of a trial run with them. We ordered the 3, and the 3 that we ordered are the Type A buses so that we could minimize the miles they were expected to accomplish on a route per day to make sure that they were going to function as needed in that arena. So,
And are the buses really quiet then? Because I've heard that they're really quiet.
Yeah, so if you've ever driven say a hybrid or electric car, they're very similar to that. You hear just a little bit of a kind of a whirring noise from the electric motors, but other than that, all you hear is the normal rattling around of a big metal box rolling down the road like a normal school bus.
Annie?
Just for clarification too, this is a 3-point safety belts. Is this replacing buses that don't have those? Or did we already have?
So the buses they'd be replacing would have had lap belts previously. From the buses we're replacing are from the late 1990s and early 2000s. These are old buses that at that time came with lap belts, but these do have both lap shoulder belts and the built-in 5-point child restraint seats for like early childhood students.
For all 84 seats?
Well, that's for the electric. If we're talking about the electric buses.
No, I was talking about these, I'm sorry.
Oh, the 84
kind of bopping
passenger
around on
buses do have lap and shoulder belts in them. They don't have the built-in, we don't use them typically for early childhood routes.
Great, thank you.
Liz, yep. Ned?
And I was just going to add some of the factors that are influencing our look into electric buses is number one, we have a very small lot for our transportation department. So really just bringing in a few additional vehicles to the fleet is all we can manage. But we really need to evaluate the electric buses in all weather conditions, see what the battery drain looks like, evaluate how many miles per day is it expected to go, is it able to perform that under air conditioning running, heat running, and all those variables. So we really are excited to give them a try this summer and then really just have them in the fleet to see how they perform over a year before we would make an investment in a lot more, just because that footprint is so small for us. And so really the property footprint is one of the constraints that we're facing. So that's one of the variables that I just wanted to make sure to bring forward to the community.
Okay. Laura, would you call the roll?
Mr. Shrivastov,
Yes.
Ms. Byer,
Yes.
Mrs. Danik,
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew,
Yes.
Ms. Mumgard,
Yes.
Dr. Browner.
Yes. Next, 9.2 from the superintendent, 9.2.1 Cisco WebEx calling. Liz Kirk.
So the district started doing voice over IP calling back in 2001. I'm no expert in temporal physics, but it's been 24 years since that time. It's hard to believe, but it has been. It took us, in fairness, it took us 15 years to get it rolled out. That's because we did it in conjunction with indoor air quality projects and so on, because it's costly to roll out, and we had to change a lot of the infrastructure and so on and so forth. My comments tonight are really the substance of them come from analysis that was done in conjunction with our Operations and Technology Committee that Scott Wieskamp and I lead together, as well as Joe Wright from a safety perspective. In this particular case, we have been at the VoIP game for quite a while. It's been a very cost-effective way of doing business, and it's picked up most of the businesses in Lincoln use some form of voice over IP. The state of Nebraska in the past 5 years has gone to voice over IP, and so it is a cost-effective way of doing business. It's been 5 years since we did our last contract. As we came up and approached this particular contract, it seemed a good time to look at what we have traditionally done and whether it made sense to stay in that arena. And what we have traditionally done is manage all of our own servers on site. That kind of runs counter to what most folks are doing. They're running their server infrastructure in the cloud. So as we looked at it, we had to make a determination on what it would cost us to do that. As we did our analysis, adjusting for the fact that we've paid the same amount over the past 5 years, during that time, ordinarily you have about a 5% uplift every single year. We avoided that, but we wouldn't avoid, now that we're 5 years hence, we wouldn't avoid seeing an uplift in cost. When we adjusted for that, as well as what it costs to run on premise, it was about $1.4 million to do it as we traditionally had, as opposed to $1.525 million to do it in the cloud. So that's about an 8.65% difference by doing it in the cloud versus doing it on premise as we traditionally have. So we really sort of looked at it and said, what are the advantages? Well, first, the value of staying with our current provider, Cisco. The value is it's less expensive to run in the cloud than any of the cloud telephony alternatives we looked at, be that Zoom, Ring Central, and others. Zoom probably being one of the ones that gets adopted the most in the state of Nebraska. Complete compatibility with our 6,000 plus handsets. That's not trivial. We don't want to lose our investment in those, so having complete compatibility with all those is very important. It leverages our existing expertise in the environment. We can continue to do things in a fashion the operations folks can, as they have for years, continuing to build atop their knowledge. Our existing configurations, which are considerable, can all be migrated, so we don't have to start from scratch. And we get a 90-day no-cost update that is assisted, and it is rolling, meaning that we don't have to do a hard cutover at some specific point. We can roll through this over a 90-day period. We get assistance during that. And we don't have any duplicative licensing during that time where we're paying both for our existing system plus another one and then having to do a hard cut. Some new functionality that's really important is this gives us the ability to, in the cloud, to automate the provisioning of soft phone service. Now, during the pandemic, you might recall this idea that we could make it possible for somebody to have a phone on their computer, and that gave them the ability to basically be as if they were at school or in the school office. The difficulty in doing that in our current environment is really twofold. First, it's cumbersome to do with the configuration tools you have when you run the environment on premise. That's number one. The updated version in the cloud, the WebEx calling, would allow us to very easily handle multiple devices for people. So if they wanted to have a soft phone on their computer, a soft phone on their mobile device, a phone, for example, they certainly could without any difficulty, and we could make that happen for them. It also gives us what we refer to as call center light. We really only have one dedicated call center in LPS, and that is the Community Services Call Center that actually uses the idea of agents, and they get onto their phones and they can get in and out of queue and all that sort of thing. You can add people to the queue and whatnot. And the reason for that is largely because it's rather costly to run that. When we move to this environment, it would afford us this call center light, which would mean we can certainly operate within that for our computing services help desk. It would also allow us to put up help desks in other departments if that became something that they were interested in doing. Some of the sophistication of that and so on would really, I think, be of benefit to some of the departments that right now we have sophisticated call trees and those kinds of things. But the truth of the matter is they could really use the additional functionality. We get that rides along with it. The ability to use something like softphone, though, comes at the cost of compliance. E911, there are two important considerations. One's called, is a provision in Ray Baum's Act that says if you're going to have a phone as part of your call, it has to tell them where you're calling from. You might imagine if that's on your computer or something, it's not associated with a physical address. So you have to have some way to basically geo-position yourself and be able to send that information along to comply with that law. This would allow us to do that. Kerry's law is one that came about, and this is the idea that 911 needs to be something that is exactly and only that. Even if you're in a hotel, you're in someplace like LPS where ordinarily you'd have to dial 9 to get an outside line. Kerry's law says no, 911 is 911, and that's the way it has to work. This would also ensure that we're working and in compliance with that. So all told, as we looked at it fiscally, we feel that this makes sense for the district to move forward. We do have cost avoidance over the course of the next 5 years. We pay the same amount each year for this. This is a rolling year-over-year expense. What you see in terms of total cost is the total cost over that 5 years. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Kathy?
Okay, so I'm going to start with an easy one.
Sure.
VoIP, Voice over Internet Protocol.
Voice over IP, yes, Internet
Okay,
Protocol.
I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Some of us are old, we don't
Well,
remember all
what-
those things.
you're right on track.
Okay, so you talked about everything except security. Hit a little bit more on how having everything in the cloud is more secure than having a server in a building.
Well, it's always a little bit of a mixed bag. You know, I've heard it said that there really aren't any true solutions. There are just better or worse trade-offs. The trade-off is that you're putting data that would otherwise maybe be on-premise and therefore under your sovereignty, you're putting it somewhere else. The good news is you're putting it into an environment that has a lot more information security professionals than we have here at Lincoln Public Schools. When we consider this as part of our overall strategy, it's no different relative to telephony than what our move off of Zimbra was in putting all of our email out in Google instead. So a similar sort of trade-off. You do get you don't have it right here at your inside our firewall, but we do have more security than we would experts than we would otherwise have internally.
I'm not sure I understand all of the automating my phone to, my computer to be my phone, because it freaks me out when my iPad rings from my phone. So I'll just leave that one where it's at. Is this going to eliminate the need for handsets within our buildings? Are we going to continue to use handsets, or are they going to just talk to their computers?
Yeah, no, we have a substantial investment in handsets. We'll continue to use those. One of the things that is important is the security considerations associated with that. Having those handsets in classrooms is an important consideration for security. That's why having our operations and technology and security folks all meeting together when we're doing this kind of work, everybody rings in and says, no, this is important to us. It needs to work this way. So we don't lose any of our investment. We continue to leverage that, and then we'll see as things roll forward how this might change how people use their phones. I can tell you that one of the things that any number of our educators are interested in is the ability to very easily make phone calls from their cellular phone, but not have their number picked up. So I want to call home. I don't necessarily, somebody's home. I don't necessarily want them to see my cell number. It will appear to them just as if they were using an LPS phone. So it puts them behind that security that they would have if they were at school rather than on their own cell phones. And we have a number of folks that are pretty eager for that capacity.
So the last one is sending the right messages to our students and users. Because when we have created an environment that uses more electronics, and we tell the kids use less electronics, is this sending that mixed bag to the kids, or is this just, well, I'll let you answer the question. Maybe you'll answer the question for me so I won't have to try and figure out.
Yeah, I think for the typical classroom engagement, if somebody needs to ring a phone, I think they're going to ring the phone in the classroom. We know where the teacher is. She or he is scheduled into that classroom at that time. Office has a great deal of history being able to ring into classrooms as need be. I think the use of alternative devices and for telephony is going to play out first and foremost in the ability for our folks to be, when they're not in their classroom, to still have their phone with them so that they can make calls that are calls still as if they were from an LPS phone.
So the calls would go, let's just say there was an intruder in a building and a staff member they would use their computer to do that, or would they use the phone in the classroom?
Phone in the classroom.
Okay.
And especially and that's one of the things that Joe Wright will always say, under stress, we want as much of it to be muscle memory as possible. So we can use a phone.
Because learning something new is hard for old people.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
Yeah. Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. So we'll come back to us at our next meeting. Thank you. Next, we have items 9.2.2, peak project grant application. Mike.
Good evening, board members. Following that, I think this is a much more simple agenda item, and one that you likely recognize as what we have before you tonight is our annual application for peak grant funding, promoting engagement. and knowledge. And these funds are available through the Office of Special Education to the Nebraska Department of Ed. It's something that these are funds that we have accessed in previous years, and we're pursuing them again for the 25-26 school year. The purpose of these funds is to help support improved academic outcomes for students with disabilities. Examples of how these funds would be targeted would be to help us supplement resources aimed at supporting students who are currently below grade level in reading and math in grades 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. This is how we've used these funds this year, and this application should be approved by the board and by the Department of Education would be used to continue that work for next year. There is no matching requirement, and the deadline is May 1st, and so a full 2 reading process will suffice.
All right. Any questions? Seeing none, this will come back to us at our next meeting. Thanks, Mike. Next, for second reading, we just have one item, 10.2.1, processing of USDA commodities mozzarella cheese. We have a motion, Don.
I move approval.
We have a second. Annie.
I have to second it. I second it.
All right. Any discussion? Seeing none, Laura, would you call the roll?
Ms. Mumgarde,
Yes.
Mr. Shrivastov,
Yes.
Ms. Byer,
Yes.
Mrs. Danik,
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew,
Yes.
Dr. Browner.
Yes. We have no expedited emergency actions, nothing removed from consent agenda. Informational items from 13.1.1, the budget calendar for 25-26. Kathy.
Thank you, Dr. Rauner. I'm actually going to turn this over to Dr. Standish after a brief introduction. We do a budget calendar every single year. It gives us a date and times of when we will talk about different parts of the budget. But more importantly than that, it gives our community an opportunity to know when to come and speak with us. The Finance Committee met on this last week, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Standish to give details.
Good evening. Tonight we present kind of the process and the calendar and some of the big parameters related to the school district budget development for the 25-26 school year. And we just want to go ahead and get started. We'll talk about the calendar. We also want to give early notice on community engagement and really talk to the community about the process we've put in place to kind of move that community engagement from the pink postcard, which is after the school year started, after all the hiring done, after the budget needs to be, and often within 2 weeks of the budget having to be filed, and talk to the community about the most beneficial place to engage. We also want to make sure, since our first work session is the end of June, that is actually in line with the homestead exemption filing deadlines. So we have a slide to kind of direct the community to where they can find resources on that. We have a few early preliminary budget factors, knowing we're still 3 months from our first work session, but we have a few of those factors that we could lay out tonight, and then a real quick legislative update on school finance legislation. So this document is not necessarily for all of us to go over and read tonight, but it's more just to exhibit the concept that we have a very extensive process that spans all throughout the year. We start in November, we're updating enrollment, we're talking about negotiations, knowing that negotiations is the single biggest factor on our budget growth from year to year, and we are continuing to work, monitor legislative bills, updating forecasting all the way through the winter. We actually have to make decisions about staffing conferences and class sizes and staffing for schools as an executive team, working through processes with schools in the spring months. So a lot of that has already occurred by this point. And then we gear up for June when we really initiate the preliminary proposed budget for the following year with the community, and we have a community engagement process for that. One thing the Finance Committee asked about was, how did it go last year? Which I think was a great question, because we did something a smidge different last year. We had our budget forums broadcast on Facebook Live, and then we opened up a window for a community member who maybe viewed on Facebook one of the budget forums or a part of a budget forum where they could submit a question. So we were really trying to move to this format where people could engage in our budget process whatever time they like. You know, they could be watching TV at 9 o'clock at night, maybe watch a little clip of a video if it sparked a question. During that end of June, beginning of July timeline, they could then offer a question through the district website and get an answer posted, and that Q&A was available for the community. We had a great result. I think, as we all know, the world has kind of shifted from having to be in one place at one time to do one thing. So we had almost 2,000 views on Facebook where people engaged with the media that was out there, and then about 100 people that submitted questions through that Q&A process. So that was great news and a great report for the Finance Committee, and that really guided us to go ahead and replicate what we did last year since we had such great engagement. So we are here in March, and we've had state aid certified, so I have that number for you. That's based on current law. We're presenting the budget calendar tonight, and then we will turn around and have all of this published on our website after this evening. We will be working very hard between now and June as a team, the exec team, the finance committee, board member input to work towards that preliminary proposed budget presentation the end of June. That will be at a public work session at 4:30. There's always opportunity for the public to come comment at the board meeting that follows that work session. We'll open that online input window on the 25th that I talked about, and then we'll have our forums, which will include a virtual forum at noon. That, once again, will be posted on Facebook, recorded. There's videos on the website, lots of ways for people to engage in that information, with an in-person public forum at 6, and then we will do a virtual public forum the following day at 6. So people can engage live if they want live Q&A and live feedback, or they could do it virtually and submit through the online input window. Now, as a board, all of you know at some point we have to make decisions and put together what really is that proposed budget. So we do close the online input window formally on July 11th. As you all know, I'm more than happy to talk to any community member anytime and answer questions about the budget. It's just kind of that formal gathering process close on July 11th. I'm happy to take calls and answer questions anytime, and I do on a regular and routine basis. July 22nd, we should really be kind of making some final decisions. At that point, we also are able to look more at all of the funds. The first work session, a lot of our energy is on the general fund. Of $1 billion budget, almost 600 million of it is the general fund, and that is the one that impacts classrooms and staffing the most, so that's where we focus our energy early. We are also going to, if necessary, that base growth limitation, which is a new third cap on school districts, because we have our levy cap, we have our budget cap, we have a base growth cap. We're going to look at July as a first reading, so we can forecast that into the community and get that taken care of as part of the budget process if that vote and that process is necessary based on where we land. There's always opportunity for public input at the board meeting attached to the work sessions. We will work through August, get school started, and we will have opportunity for public comment at those board meetings. We have a budget hearing August 25th, and then we have the board meeting where we would look at that base growth limitation and also have opportunity for public comment. Unfortunately, because of layering multiple legislative bills on top of each other and laws on top of each other, September gets a little confusing because we either have to have a property tax request hearing here at the Board of Education, which would happen on September 9th, or we participate in the county-wide, what's commonly referred to as the pink postcard hearing, and that would be somewhere between September 15th and September 18th. We genuinely do not get all the data that we need to submit the forms to participate in the county-wide hearing or make those calculations till we get the information from the assessor in August. So at our August 26th board meeting, and at the budget hearing on August 25th, we will make sure to be very clear about how to participate in which hearing in September. It's just unfortunate it's become this complicated. It's not the Board of Education's doing. It is actually the legislature placing various caps and rules that we have to work through to get a budget adopted. So I just wanted to clarify that we wanted to make sure we really underscored that this year to make sure people understood which hearing would occur in September. We will have first reading on September 9th and budget adoption September 23rd, with the budget filing due September 30th. Once again, the time that we really want people to come and talk to us is during that June and July window. So the September hearings, the school year started, we're only 15 days away from actually filing the budget, but we want to make sure we're transparent in some of the different parameters we have to navigate as a school district. So that would be two different paths in the month of September, and we'll be really clear in the month of August which of those is occurring, whether it's the property tax request hearings here at the board meeting or whether it would be a countywide pink postcard hearing. Through our budget process, when you put together all those months put together from June through September, there's 2 public work sessions, 3 public forums, 6 Board of Education meetings. There's an online input opportunity via the district website and 2 public hearings. So there is definitely a substantial amount of opportunity for the public to come and share with the Board of Education their thoughts and opinions about the preliminary proposed budget once we roll that out at the end of June. We keep the information available on our website. This is actually a screenshot from last year where you can see we had the work session available where people could watch the video straight on the website, and then they could go and submit a question or comment. And then I shared the question and comments also with the Board of Education through that process. We'd like to just remind the community that if you are a person who may be interested in the Homestead Exemption Act, that has a deadline in June. So once you get the pink postcard, it's too late. So just that would be something to check out, and we will have this website in this presentation on the district website if people have trouble finding that. If you go to the Department of Revenue and type in homestead exemption, it will also take you to the page. Nothing we're experts on, but just a resource we want to make sure the community is familiar with. It is a way to reduce your tax bill if you are over the age of 65 or have certain parameters. So that filing deadline is June 30th. And now we'll kind of shift over to, here's what we know today. It's very early. We're 3 months away from our preliminary proposed budget, and we, as we talked about in the milestone document, have a lot of work in front of us and a really strong process to do that work. So it's nothing we shy away from. It's just we have a long way to go. So one of the first things we do is we want to give the board just kind of a snapshot of the needs. We are a large school district, and so rolling forward from one year to the next year, if we don't do anything different for estimated, keep in mind, we're still in the process of negotiating with groups, but we're estimating almost $20 million increase just from salary and benefit increases alone. And so when you have the number of staff, when your budget is 90% staff, that is the biggest driver of need for when we're looking at funding a budget for next year. We also know that we grew 600 students this year, so we do have requests and needs related to staffing for that specific growth and funding the programs for students that have joined. We will know that we have programmatic changes, requests for additional programming coming up from departments. And keep in mind, these are just estimates at this point, but it's really important for us to say, okay, our budget doesn't just stay flat from year to year. You know, there are definite needs that come forward. So when we look at special education or transportation or investments in early childhood, and then operational budget needs, for example, increases in our property insurance for 8 million square feet of property. That goes up every year. When we look at various things across the district and various costs. And then there will be other district supports and needs that emerge through the process. So you can see there's about a $30 million number here. I mean, and I think that's just an idea of where we start our process and the hard work the board has and the finance committee and staff have in front of them as we go through it. I did want to provide an update on current law state aid because of that growth in students. And then last year, what keep in mind was a little bit smaller of evaluation growth year. So the smaller valuation growth year, rising needs of students means that our state aid is going up. So our state aid, based on current law today, is projected to go up about $10 million. So that is certified. If there is not any further legislation throughout this legislative session, that will be our state aid number. There is a recalc process that happens, but that's more in the weeds and technical. So this would be our certified state aid. We also know that at this point, what we know about the valuation side is simply what was reported in the paper. We actually don't get what's called the abstract report until later in April. So we don't have any specific data related to what's happening with valuation just yet. So speaking of current law state aid, kind of the legislative update, the key bill that could bring change was introduced by Senator Hughes. Keeping in mind, right now we're operating off of Governor Pillen's education finance package, which was passed in 2023. So throughout 2024, nothing really passed that changed school finance. So some of the things related to property tax bills and income tax credits and all of that didn't necessarily touch the finances of the school district. So this legislative session, 2025, that we're currently in, Senator Hughes, at the request of the governor, introduced LB 303, and this bill was prioritized by Senator Hughes, which means if at some point they do feel there's sufficient funding to move forward with a school finance package, this would be the vehicle, because it does have that priority distinction. Right now, in its current form, LB 303, some of the key elements go into the formula and reduce the maximum levy, which increases the need for state aid. Most of the changes that are being proposed in state aid right now are to increase state aid with an effort to reduce property tax burden. It increases foundation aid and establishes a new levy. We have not heard much about LB 303. If you're following the forecasting board, there's not a feeling that there's a lot of resources at the state to fund additional investment, but we also know that it's March and the legislative session goes till June. So we haven't heard a lot of momentum about 303 so far, but just wanted to make sure all of you knew we're keeping a close eye on it. And then in closing, I work with an amazing team of people. You can imagine gathering all that input just to say, okay, here's our starting spot is a lot of work, and it is, and we still have a lot of work to go. So Kim Schmidt, especially as the director of budget, and then Jess Jefferson, Doug Anderson, Julie, and April all helped to get this all done in that big milestone document that I showed you. So it's definitely a team effort, and it's a team effort with the board as well. So this is really kind of just the kickoff and how we're getting things started, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Kathy.
So let's see, it's the slide with the current state aid certification. I don't remember what number that was. That one. So one of the things that over my years here that my constituents have shared with me is they would like to see less up and down.
Mm-hmm.
That's not in the cards from where our current state law sits, is it?
No, the current state law, actually, the state aid formula reacts to what happens with property value. So when property values go up, state aid goes down. And actually, we had some conversation at the Finance Committee that the additional caps that have been placed on schools, we're working within them. I mean, I think we're working as hard as we can to meet the needs as best we can within them. But the most recent caps actually kind of move things around even more. So the idea that we would just kind of have this static, that's one thing that I would say always frustrates me when people say, well, the school district's revenue should just grow 2.5% a year. Well, we might grow 6% one year and 1% the next year, and then 4% and then -2%. And we have to find a way to smooth that out so that we're providing a stable education system for the community. So the systems that are put in by the state, Mrs. Danek, actually work counter to the idea that we would be able to just keep this steady. We have to navigate these big, huge swings and find a way to balance that.
And so for my constituents, yes, I already knew the answer, but I rarely ask when I don't already know the answer to. The reason I had you put this slide up is if you go up and look at 2022, 2023, our state aid was $114 million. In 23, 24, it was down $10 million. Then it went down $32 million the next year. So this year, there's a $10 million increase, but we're still down from where we were 4 years ago significantly in state support, correct?
Correct, absolutely.
So we're trying to get there, but it's going to be a long road.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Property values, excuse me, are impacted by inflation, are they not?
Housing inflation absolutely would have a big impact on property values.
So inflation impacts every segment of our society, including the needs of our teachers and other staff to be able to take care of their own families. I just bring this up because I think it's really important that as we go and we look at this budget, and you mentioned it would be nice, and Mrs. Stanek mentioned this as well, that we just stay at a level like 2 or 3% from year to year for growth. But in reality, inflation is something that is out of our control, that impacts property values, it impacts housing costs, it impacts food costs, it impacts the needs of our staff. So there's really no way to absolutely predict a budget, is there?
Nope. Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
wanted to clarify that because, you know, in a perfect world, that's what we would do, but it's not a perfect world, so we have to go and respond to what's happening in the economy.
Yep, absolutely, and our needs of students. So typically, we've looked at inflation even, and then growth on top of that. So we're experiencing both in this year, yes.
Yeah, and that brings up another really important point, and that is that we want our community to grow because that's good for everybody. But with growth comes additional costs.
Correct, yep.
So on the federal level, they're going through the budget reconciliation process, and depending on the outcome of that, once we know it, could that impact our upcoming budget?
It would depend on the timing of the decisions about funding. We do have significant FTE in Lincoln Public Schools that are on federal funds. I know a lot of those awards are already done, you know, and so it would come down to the process and the timing. I definitely do not want to create any fear for staff at this point in time. I think we're all in a wait and see mode, and we know this will roll through probably a multi-year process, but it would impact our funding if all of our federal funds, for example, did not exist. I don't know that we know that that's the world we're headed to because none of us really know what to expect. So I want to say we are definitely wait and see. We are in, Lincoln Public Schools is in a strong fiscal position, and so I don't want to create any fear among staff either, so.
Thank you.
Kathy?
And I forgot to say this, but I'm joined on the Finance Committee by Piyush Srivastava and Annie Mumgard. And I just want to say thank you for all you've done. Number one, to make the budget more understandable. Dr. Standish, you aren't just an MBA, you're also a teacher, and you help us teach it better. So thank you.
Thank you. Yep, and we'll have more to come, but we have a lot of work to do before we come back. So we look forward to it.
Okay. Any other things from board committees? Anything from special appointments?
It was just that Dawn and I, Mr. Mayhew and I were in a personnel policy committee this afternoon, sometime today. And we'll have a more in-depth report, I think, sometime in a month or so. But we thought it would be nice to just let it be known that with both our substitutes and what we've done in the last several years to help increase and maintain and just make it a more good environment, we are finally, we have a decrease in need in the, let me see if I get this right, decrease in need of absences, and it's the first time that we've had also a decrease in unfulfilled for a while. So it's been that's pretty fantastic. The other thing I think is kind of cool is that the substitutes asked for more communication, and that in wanting to help create a community for them, because you know, you come in, you do your work, you leave, and so forth. And I just think it's amazing that we have substitutes who would say, if I'm going to work here, let me have a community that I work with. And so in April, we're going to be starting a quarterly newsletter for our substitutes, which I just think is a fantastic response. And it's going to be called did I get the Subway? And I asked if it was going to have Subway tiles and stuff, but we'll see how it goes. As long as we have Subtastic awards that keep going. So, and we also got some positive news on our hiring data. It looks like it's all going fine and well. I'm knocking on wood. We will say no more, but it looks like it's going fine and well. Yeah, exactly. So, once we hire them, then we got to figure out we're going to keep paying them.
Great. Any other reports? All right. John.
Thank you, Board. First, just kind of wanted to mention something, reinforce something that as we're sitting here and actively listening and there's exchange with the presenters tonight, you heard from Kirk on the vetting of VoIP. You heard from Mike on peak. You heard from Phil on buses. And you heard from Liz on a range of really important infrastructure topics. And I just want to point to and reinforce the incredible level of expertise on this team. And Liz referenced to just internally within business affairs, the other team members supporting that effort. And I think that the level of expertise possessed by our team members just so supportively and transparently assists the board in deliberations and decision-making, and it's great. It's just a really remarkable thing that we have here in the Lincoln Public Schools. I want to tonight express my gratitude for opportunities that we provide as a district for our LPS students and staff, just as evidenced by some things that I've had the opportunity to kind of witness firsthand over the last few weeks. First off, just reference the first ever early childhood signing event that we hosted back on March 13th. And it's another manifestation of some of the work occurring under Dr. Price and others that is the LPS Grow Your Own initiative. And want to give a shout out to Kara Lucas-Rick, Marla Stiles, Barb Miller, others. Really awesome partnership programming for a high-need staff area that's a critical shortage area that requires great expertise. And so we're really excited about the partnerships with UNL and UNK and having a couple of our current LPS early childhood paraeducators participating in that initiative. So really excited about that. I wanted to just celebrate again a 50th anniversary celebration that I had the opportunity to attend at Zeman Elementary just last Saturday with Piyush. Piyush gave a great speech, remarks celebrating the occasion. We were really excited to be welcomed by Rudy Wolf, the principal, the dedicated staff at Zeman. They had some longtime teachers there who gave remarks as well. And then the Zeman Zebras student choir put on a pretty cool rendition of Journey's Don't Stop Believin' with the words kind of tailored to Zeman. So just really, it was just a really fun event, and they created a really cool commemorative program too, which I'll make sure we pass around. Piyush and I both grabbed a copy. Wanted to also just thank, again, building principals, Dwayne Doman at Lux, Monique Ruiz at Norwood Park, Tracy Booth at Eastridge. Those are some of the recent school visit opportunities. It's just great to connect with our building leaders, and it's really exciting to get into classrooms and observe the level of engagement and the level of connectedness, seeing happy, productive student learners dropping in on classrooms. And want to thank Bob. He was able to join me on the Eastridge visit, and your daughters attended Eastridge, so there's a pretty cool personal connection there. Finally, I just wanted to also thank Don and Piyush for committing their time, talent, energy to support a broader collective effort. We just last week attended Nebraska Association of School Boards, Washington, D.C. advocacy trip. And, you know, the outcome of that and prior reference to some of the uncertainty at the federal level right now, we are just going to continue to endeavor to make sure our elected officials at every level are aware of the needs of our LPS students and staff and the incredible return on investment that is public education. So, thank you.
Great. Anything from the monthly financial report? Okay. Announcements of upcoming events. March 27th, Arts and Humanities Grand Opening Celebration at 6 p.m. April 2nd is the Chamber Coffee at 8 a.m. The Chamber Office. April 3rd to 6th, the NSBA Annual Conference in Atlanta, Georgia. And April 8th, we'll be back here for a board meeting, 6 p.m. at the Steve Jewell District Leadership Center. No second public comment. I believe we have a request for closed session. Kathy?
I would move that we recess and move into closed session for item number 1, negotiations, number 3, litigation, number 6, personnel, and number 7, legal advice.
We have a second? Don?
Second.
Okay. Laura, would you call the roll?
Mr. Shrivastov,
Yes.
Ms. Mumgard,
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew,
Yes.
Mrs. Danik,
Yes.
Ms. Byer,
Yes.
Dr. Rauner.
Yes. We are in recess.